Yo, what is up guys, Boy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Apologies for the lack of content recently. As I said, haven't really been feeling boxing in the last few weeks or so, but I've seen some talk online about a potential fight that could go down at the end of this year. December the 16th is the date I see banded around on social media, and this essentially could be if it transpires, it will be Showtime's last boxing card. And from what I read online, the headliner could be Keith Thurman versus Stanionis at welterweight. Now, I have to say I quite like this fight for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, Stanionis in the last few years has proven to be a capable fighter. Good jab, good guard, good solid basic fundamentals, solid power. But he's been looking for that fight that can take him over to the next level against a recognisable name. So far he's beaten guys like Radzab Butayev, who's a good fighter. But again, not a household name. Thomas Delorme, he beat him. So he's beaten some guys thereabouts, but he hasn't got that name to really push him to the next level. I think Keith Thurman represents that. I know Keith Thurman hasn't been active in recent years, and let's be honest, his performances in recent fights have been patchy at best. So we don't really know where Keith Thurman's at, but in regards to Keith Thurman's name value, he is by far the biggest name Stanionis would have fought. And, you know, that's the sort of fight he needs right now, in my opinion. And even for Keith Thurman, I think many of us, including myself, kind of see Keith Thurman as a bit of a joke now. Way back when, I rated him, I felt he had talent, I felt he would go further than he's gone in boxing. Don't get me wrong, still had a good career, still being a unified champion, but there was once upon a time when people were really high on Keith Thurman. I'm talking 2012, 2013, 2014 time. But his career's never really reached those heights. And I've debated for quite some time whether he really wants to box anymore. I felt that for a number of years. I think this is the right sort of opponent for Keith Thurman to show boxing fans whether he's still serious, whether he still has it, because, newsflash, if he doesn't, Stanionis will beat him and maybe even stop him. So I think it's a fight that makes perfect sense for both fighters. You've got a guy in Stanionis who's been looking for that opportunity. It never transpired against Virgil Ortiz. He's had some bad luck. This is the sort of fight he needs. And for Keith Thurman, well, he needs to prove that he's still about it. And Stanionis is one of the top contenders or top up-and-comers in the welterweight division. So, again, this fight makes perfect sense for both guys. I actually if this fight is to happen, I will favour Stanionis to win. I think he's got far more in the tank at this stage. I think he's hungrier, and even stylistically, I think he poses issues that will trouble Keith Thurman. Stanionis is a guy who is very workmanlike in his approach, and that can be a problem in certain fights against certain fighters. He's very workmanlike. He doesn't give much away, I would say. He's compact, he's got a good solid hard jab that he uses on the front foot. He can also counter with that jab, as we saw against Butayev. But, you know, primarily he doesn't waste much, he picks his shots really well, and he applies what I would call steady pressure on his opponents. He switched his style up against Butayev because Butayev was another aggressive guy but with greater volume. So in that fight, Stanionis kind of took more of a backward step using the jab countering Butayev. That's not going to be the case in this fight with Thurman. I would imagine that Stanionis will revert to his more come-forward style. And listen, his methodical approach could give him some trouble in the early rounds of this fight. When Keith Thurman is fresh, when he's agile, when he's mobile, when he's flicking the jab, you know, firing from outside. I could see Stanionis taking a couple of rounds to warm into this fight, to where Maybe he loses the early rounds based on Thurman's foot speed, his greater athleticism. But I'm not convinced Thurman can do that for 12 rounds anymore. We saw that against Josecito Lopez. We saw it against Manny Pacquiao. Even against Mario Barrios in stages. I don't believe Keith Thurman can fight that sort of fight for 12 rounds, which is the most effective way to beat Stanionis, is using your feet, because Stanionis doesn't have the quickest feet. But like I was saying, Stanionis is a very consistent fighter in his approach. He maintains his construct, he maintains his stance, he maintains his balance, his defense, and he'll just keep on doing the same thing, and it can break guys. It can definitely break guys. And against a fragile guy in my opinion, like Keith Thurman, who's had a lot of injuries, who in my opinion has one foot out of the sport, and quite frankly who hasn't looked good in recent fights, I think that sort of consistent construct, that consistent style of Stanionis would be enough for him to win this fight after some early struggles when Thurman is fresh. It's a good fight though, because like I say, Thurman definitely has tools to really trouble Stanionis. I'm just not sure he has the gas in the tank to perform over 12 rounds, essentially.